begin this morning with an excerpt from a sermon delivered by Paul Tillich. Paul Tillich, as you probably know, was one of the preeminent theologians of the 20th century. And this was from a sermon which he delivered entitled, "You Are Accepted." We cannot transform our lives unless we allow them to be transformed by the stroke of grace. It happens or it does not happen. And certainly it does not happen if we try to force it upon ourselves, just as it shall not happen so long as we think, in our self-complacency, that we have no need of it. Grace strikes us when we are in great pain and restlessness. It strikes us when we walk through the dark valley of a meaningless and empty life. It strikes us when we feel that our separation is deeper than usual because we have violated another life, a life which we loved or from which we were estranged. It strikes us when our disgust for our own being, our indifference, our weakness, our hostility, and our lack of direction and composure have become intolerable to us. It strikes us when, year after year, the longed-for perfection in life does not appear. When the old compulsions reign within us as they have for decades. When despair destroys all joy and courage. Sometimes at that moment, a wave of light breaks into our darkness, and it is as though a voice were saying, "You are accepted. You are accepted, accepted by that which is greater than you, the name of which you do not know. Do not ask for the name now. Perhaps you will find it later. Do not try to do anything now. Perhaps later you will do much. Do not seek for anything. Do not perform anything. Do not intend anything. Simply accept the fact that you are accepted. If that happens to us, we experience grace. After such an experience, we may not be better than before, and we may not believe more than before, but everything is transformed. Words from the theologian Paul Tillich. I'm going to start my remarks this morning with what I will call a generational identity exercise. So I will ask you, please raise your hand if you ever collected S&H green stamps when you went to the grocery store or bought gasoline, and then you took them home, you pasted them in these little booklets, remember that? And exchanged them for a toaster or a set of pots and pans or a fountain pen or something swell like that. Wasn't that great? I remember doing that. Now here's the other side of the generational identity exercise. Please raise your hand if you don't have the least idea what I'm talking about. Okay, this is an age test. So the Sperry and Hutchinson Company was founded in 1896. They quickly became simply known as S&H. They sold trading stamps to merchants who in turn gave them away to purchasers as a way of building customer traffic and loyalty. They could influence customer behavior by, for example, giving double stamps on days when business was slow, or giving double stamps when people bought merchandise that wasn't moving very well. This business was active from the very beginning of the 20th century, but it reached a fever pitch in the 1960s. I remember this very well. They produced glossy catalogs of all the merchandise you could get in exchange for S&H green stamps. They urged schools to have stamp drives so the school could get, a new copy machine or a TV set or something that they otherwise couldn't afford. They would get almost anything for you if you had enough stamps. In one case, a school district, listen to this, saved up several million stamps and bought a gibbon for the zoo. How about that? There were expensive things in the catalog like cars and fur coats. But for the bulk of the business was everyday, mostly household things like toasters and pots and pans and electric blankets and table radios. Raise your hand if you don't know what a table radio is. had special stores where you went to trade in your stamps for merchandise. You couldn't spend money at those stores, just green stamps. I remember going to those stores to turn in the booklets of stamps that my wife and I had saved up and to get something good in return. Now here is the point that I am coming to. That store was called a redemption center. Redemption. You went there to redeem the green stamps that you had saved up. You went there to turn in something that you had been working on, something which was of no intrinsic value, and get back something that was of value and something that you wanted. Now, redemption happens to be one of those scary, icky religious words like sin and grace, which we tell ourselves have nothing to do with us, but we secretly wonder if they might, and if so, what they might mean. So I thought we might begin to get at the meaning of redemption for us by looking at what some of the meanings it has in various different contexts. In the context of green stamps with their redemption center, redemption means turning in something we've been saving up for something we want. It means exchanging something old which has no intrinsic value for something new which is of value to us. So the old thing we bring into exchange is transformed into something new, something of value. In that sermon excerpt which I read from Paul Tillich, he did not use the word redemption, but he did use the word transformed. Remember, he said, we cannot transform our lives unless we allow them to be transformed by the stroke of grace. After such an experience, we may not be better than before, we may not believe more than before, but everything is transformed. So redemption can mean transformation or change. The property laws of the ancient Israelites are spelled out in various places in the Hebrew scriptures of the Old Testament, but nowhere more clearly will you find them than in the 25th chapter of the book of Leviticus. This is where we read that the land is to be tilled and planted and harvested for 6 years and then given a rest in the 7th year, in which it is not to be tilled or planted or harvested. The land is to be given a rest, which the writer calls a sabbatical. Notice the relation of that word to the word Sabbath, a day of rest, or in this case, in the case of the fields, a year of rest. This 7-year cycle is referred to as a week of years. After 7 weeks of years, or 49 years, the trumpet is sounded to herald the 50th year, which is known as the year of the Jubilee. In this system, property is not to be sold in perpetuity, but only until the next Jubilee. Its value fluctuates, declining as the Jubilee gets closer because the buyer is purchasing a smaller number of years, or as the writer of Leviticus puts it, a certain number of harvests. In the 50th or Jubilee year, all property is to revert to its original and rightful owner. And this process is known as, guess what? Redemption. Redemption. So in this case, the word redemption means the restoration of something to its original and rightful owner. The ancient Israelites also used the word redemption to name the process in which a person sold into slavery could be bought back and restored to freedom. So, here's another meaning of redemption. It can mean release from bondage and restoration unto freedom. Modern finance also uses the term redemption. Here it refers to the price at which something can be sold during a period of uncertainty about its value. Suppose you buy a 10-year bond with a face value of $1,000. You buy it for, say, $800. And what that bond says, it promises to pay you 10 years from the day you bought it, $1,000. So you know its value today when you bought it, $800. And you know its value 10 years from today, $1,000, because it says right on the document, will pay to bearer the sum of $1,000 on the date 10 years from the date of purchase. But what if your plans change? Suppose in between you need some money. You can't wait all those 10 years. Then you might want to sell your bond and you don't know what it is worth. You would be redeeming your bond, another use of the word redemption. You would be redeeming your bond at a price and the price at which you do it is known as the redemption value or the redemption price. It might be affected by the rise and fall of interest rates, by the growth or contraction of the economy, by events such as famines or wars, things that are unpredictable and over which we have no control whatsoever. So in this case, redemption involves an element of risk, an element of luck, an element of danger. Danger. So how are we doing developing an understanding of the meaning of the word redemption? Sometimes, as in the case of green stamps, it means turning in something old and worthless in exchange for something new and valuable. It means transforming something old and worthless into something new. Sometimes, as in the property laws of the ancient Israelites, it means restoring something to its original and rightful owner, or release from bondage. In its use in modern finance, redemption has an element of risk and even danger, because you do not know how much you are going to get back. Maybe you have read a children's story called Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. How many have read that? If you have read it, you remember that Alexander woke up one morning to discover that he had chewing gum in his hair. Then he tripped on his skateboard. At breakfast, one of his brothers found a Corvette Stingray model car in his cereal box, and his other brother found a master spy secret decoder ring in his cereal box, but there was nothing in Alexander's box except the cereal. It was going to be a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. On the way to school, all the other kids got to sit next to a window, but Alexander was scrunched in between two girls in the back seat. At school, the teacher was too busy at her desk to look up and say good morning to him when he entered the room. And then at lunch, listen to this, the boy across the table from him had a Twinkie for dessert, and the girl next to him had 2 lemon cookies. And Alexander looked into his lunch bag and discovered that his mother had forgotten to pack him any dessert. It certainly was a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. One time, some years ago, I read this story to the children during a worship service at another church where I was serving. And at the end, I said to the adults, "Have you ever had a day like that?" And they all nodded and mumbled, oh yeah, we've had days like that, yes. Then I said to the children, they were all gathered around on the floor there, and I said, "Boys and girls, have you ever had a day like that?" And most of them nodded and said, "Yes, they had, yes, oh yes." But one little boy shook his head and he said, "No, I never had a day like that." I could only say to him gently, "Well, it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time because experiences like those are part of what it means to be human." And so for us adults to look back at the kinds of examples that Paul Tillich cites, if you've never realized that you have disappointed and maybe even betrayed someone you love, it's only a matter of time. If you've never found yourself estranged from those whom you love, with whom you used to laugh and have such a good time, and now somehow you are on the outs, and maybe it's even your fault, or you don't know whose fault it is, it's only a matter of time until that happens to you. It's only a matter of time until we realize we have violated another life, probably someone we love. It's only a matter of time until we wake up to know we are in the grip of some toxic and destructive habit that has held on to us not just for years, but for decades, and we seem powerless to overcome those habits. All these things are only a matter of time because such experiences are what it means to be human. When we come to this place, this dark, valley of a meaningless and empty life, wouldn't it be great if there were a redemption center we could go to? Why, we could just jump into the car, drive over to the mall, get out of the car, go in the front door and walk up to the counter and say to the clerk, "Here's my old, crummy, worn out, disappointing, estranged, untrustworthy, bad habit enslaved life. Can I turn it in and get a new one?" We need redemption. We need to turn in something old and worthless and exchange it for something new and valuable. We need to transform it to something better. We need to restore something. We need to restore our own life to its original and rightful owner, which is ourselves. We need to be released from bondage. We need redemption, and we need to be willing to risk the danger that it involves. Now, achieving redemption is a two-part process. Part of it we can intentionally work on, and it can be very hard work. The other part comes to us without effort and without warning, simply because we are human. Now, how might we get started on this work of our own redemption? I will leave you with a few concrete suggestions. First, nurture the life of your spirit. However you do this, do it intentionally, do it every day. You may try it by reading poetry or reading scripture, by playing the piano or walking in the woods, by keeping a journal or practicing yoga, by praying or meditating, by raising a flower garden or tending a litter of puppies. Do something every day that drains your soul of the mindless chatter that often occupies it and opens up that quiet place deepest within you that is usually closed, even to you. Reach out to someone from whom you are estranged or simply out of touch. Not all of them at once. This is hard work. This is slow work. Maybe just a phone call or a note. Maybe you can begin to restore something that was once precious but has been lost or broken over the years. Think about how you can make amends to those you may have wronged or hurt or betrayed. Again, don't try to do this all at once. This is slow work. But you can get started. You can get started at any time. Finally, do some work for justice in the world. This congregation is a good place to find and do such work, although there are many others too, and we heard from Lisa this morning about some work that she is doing. Most of us are active with social justice work in some way. It may be what brought us to this place in the first place. Remember, as you do this work, it is not just for the benefit of those being served. It is not even just for the very principle of justice itself. It is also for you. It is part of your redemption. In the passage I read, Tillich didn't use the word redemption, but he used the word grace. They are closely related. Grace is the process, and redemption is the result. Grace occurs when we least expect it. It may be seen as a gift of God, if you're okay with that language, or perhaps simply of the benevolence of the universe, or maybe just luck. Grace comes to us when we achieve a new understanding of our lives, a new understanding of our acceptability, even in the face of all our imperfections. Perhaps it comes with the wisdom of age as we grow older. In any case, when it comes easily and very likely by surprise. That is how grace comes to us. This is what redemption can mean to us as modern Unitarian Universalists. It can mean transforming our lives from something old to something new, from something disappointing to something fulfilling. It can mean restoring our lives and souls to us as their original and rightful owners. It can mean release from bondage. And it can mean we have the courage to undertake the risk and danger of redemption. Some of this comes to us through our own intentional efforts, and some of it comes without effort through grace. May this redemption come to you when you least expect it.